Welcome to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt on the radio, on Facebook, on YouTube, on talklawradio.com, and don't forget podcasts everywhere. Today I'm going to be talking about real estate with Tim Allums. He's an associate broker and realtor with Keller Williams. And it's very timely today because of the Road Act. And so we're going to get into some of the details. But first, I want to talk to Jacob Warren, financial planner with Financial Planning HQ. Jacob's been a financial planner with his dad and his brother for the last 10 years. He's passionate about helping San Antonio families and business owners achieve financial success. Jacob, welcome back.
Thank you, Todd. It is great to be here.
I forgot to say that you enjoy spending time with your wife and your two kids.
Yes, that's very important. And if my wife is listening, I enjoy spending time with all of you.
Right. So you've spent years working with successful families, business owners, executives, and retirees. What's something that people find surprising when they sit down with you for the first time?
Yeah, the biggest surprise that I usually see, Todd, is that most wealthy people are far less organized than they think they are. And that doesn't mean that they're irresponsible or they're missing things. It just, success can often create more complexity, right? So if you think about your current situation over time, you've probably accumulated investment accounts, retirement plans, insurance, maybe some real estate, business interests. You have all of these different people that are subject matter experts. They kind of touch your financial life, but everything is on its own. There's different silos. And the question that you should be asking yourself is, does all of this work together? Is it working harmoniously to make sure that you're successful? I wanted to actually give an example on a mutual client that we had, Todd, where we had a big life event for one of our clients. And within about a week, we were able to get all of her subject matter experts on a Zoom call together to kind of line out the plan of action for moving forward, because she had a lot of big decisions to make. Todd, you were on that call. Is that something that's common with financial advisors?
No, it's very uncommon.
Right.
In fact, I think y'all are the only ones that do that.
Yes. And the reason that we do that is because we kind of view ourselves as a financial CEO, a quarterback for a family or a business owner. And when something happens that affects your financial roadmap, your overall well-being, we got to be there and we got to make a strategy to make sure that you're successful. I came across a statistic earlier today that only 22% of affluent families have somebody that they can look to lead them in these types of situations, that is coordinating all of their subject matter experts like attorneys, financial advisors, market analysts, anybody that kind of touches your financial world. Having them is great, but having somebody that oversees everything that they're doing, that's vitally important. And only 22% of people have that.
Why do you think that is?
I think because sometimes financial success and clarity, they're not the same thing. So someone can build a high net worth and not have answers to very basic questions. This is something I see all the time. Someone with, say, $5-10 million saved, they don't know when they can retire, right? They don't know if they're spending too much money while they're earning all of this money. They don't know how much they can spend when they do retire. Sometimes people don't know what to do, like if it's a husband and wife, if one of them passes away early or passes away first, what is the strategy from there on out? And something that's very important for successful people is their tax planning, because tax laws change constantly. Everybody wants to pay the least amount of taxes they can, but also not get in trouble and get audited. Of course, that's a nightmare. But we're able to do that in coordination with subject matter experts like a CPA, where we can come up with a tax projection and say, hey, this is what you're expected to pay in taxes this year. Here are some small tweaks that we're going to make to reduce your taxable income in obviously a way that is legal. I don't want to,
Legal,
right,
ethical, above board.
Yes, but things that people may not know about because the tax laws change all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's things like that. And a lot of these questions that people come to us and are asking and want clarity on, we're able to really answer for them in the first 3 months of working with us. In fact, most of them can be answered in the first 2 weeks when we actually create a financial plan. We put pen to paper and we know we can answer those questions to the penny. It's actually really cool if you like to nerd out on numbers like I do. And a lot of this is missing in traditional financial advisor client relationships because it just revolves almost always about investments, the market, products, things like that.
Mm-hmm. What's the biggest planning opportunity you see affluent families overlooking today?
The biggest one, Todd, is decision making. So I touched on this earlier, where conversations revolve around how the stock market's doing or this fancy new product that the company that they work for offers.
Mm-hmm.
All of that stuff is great, and you definitely need, exposure to different products like life insurance or investments, but making a big decision has a huge impact on your long-term well-being as a person, especially like if you're retiring.
Mm-hmm.
You want to make sure that you can maintain your lifestyle. You don't have to change everything too much, and that you know exactly where you're going to be taking money. So some of these questions that I get and that I work towards are, when should I retire? I recently went through this with a client who is a school teacher, and she started saving very late in life. So it was not easy to get her to a point where she can actually retire. But this was her last school year, and she was stressed out about it. She was worried about it. I'm like, hey, it's all right here. I have your expenses. I know all your investments. I know where we're going to take money from, and you can stop working. You can retire. You can see your daughters and things like that. And I think answering that question and kind of lining it out for her made it to where she was able to have that clarity that I mentioned earlier. Some other things, I did want to highlight this one because this one's really cool, and it's probably something that you've heard about, Roth conversions.
Mm-hmm.
So Roth IRAs are only available up to a certain point. You can actually make too much money to where you can't have a Roth IRA. But if you've established one, maybe when you were younger, right? If you created one when you were, say, fresh out of college, 21, 22 years old, you still have the Roth account. They can't take it away from you.
Mm-hmm.
And you can actually do what's called a Roth conversion and convert some of your traditional IRA assets into a Roth, pay taxes on it now. But the benefit of that, which we measure, we want to make sure we measure this before we do it, but we're able to do that, can have a huge, huge impact on, firstly, the amount of taxes that you pay. But if you measure that over, let's say somebody's 45 years old when they're doing this, over the next 20 years, from 45 to 65, it saves them a ton of money just because of the tax savings.
Wow.
Yeah, so things like that they're often overlooked. But we want to make sure that we're looking at all of these things for our clients, and of course, it's just not all revolving around your investments.
So if investments aren't the only focus, what should people be paying attention to?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I take somebody through what's called a financial roadmap experience, we do talk about money, of course, but it's towards the end of the meeting. And something that things come up during that meeting because I'm not asking them like, hey, where's your portfolio invested, or, things like that. I'm asking them, hey, what's important about money to you? And I have done enough roadmaps. I've done a lot of financial roadmaps. None of them are the same. You get completely different answers. You'll have husband and wife looking at each other like, wait, I didn't know that you didn't want to retire or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
things like
Mm-hmm.
that. So most people are focused on things like the market risk, but that's only like a small part of the puzzle. You want to be thinking about taxes like we talked about earlier. Longevity. People are living a lot longer now. There's a lot of, especially now with AI, science has gotten crazy where they're predicting that people are going to start living well into their hundreds.
Right.
And if you're a younger person that's planning your financial future, you don't have to make your money last until age 85 anymore. You got to be thinking well beyond that. And that's something that I definitely talk to my younger clients about, because, hey, like if we can make your money last until age 110, let's say, then we'll be safe, regardless of the outcome. So, this most successful families, you're not trying to maximize returns. You're building flexibility, projecting options, and making sure that an unforeseen event doesn't kind of derail your whole financial world.
Yeah. Well, you talk about the financial roadmap. Why is that so important?
It's important because, number one, it's how I get to know my clients, and it helps us make recommendations that are specifically tailored to the person on their financial roadmap. But the biggest part is you make major financial decisions every year, some bigger than others, but all of these we want to measure to make sure that you're making the right decisions. The last thing we want to do is have a client that makes a huge decision and it derails everything, which is definitely, it's definitely something that does happen. So, I want to think about, okay, we're in the era of the smartphone now, but if we went back to let's say the 80s, and you were trying to drive from San Antonio to New York, but you didn't have a map,
Mm-hmm.
How would that go?
It wouldn't.
It wouldn't go right. Right. So
You can make great time and not get to where you need to be.
right. So you might end up in the state of New York, but you're probably not going to end up where you want to be, right? And that's kind of like how we view financial planning, where we have everything lined out. We know exactly what you want to accomplish, and we're going to show you exactly what you need to do to get there. So it's really, I talked about decision making earlier. We want to help our clients make great decisions and make sure that they're successful.
What's the difference between someone who has wealth and someone who has financial confidence?
It's clarity, number one. The difference is having a financial roadmap. You know exactly what your money is meant to accomplish. You recognize that there's trade-offs in financial decisions, and you have a strategy that has been thoroughly tested over and over again to make sure that it's successful.
If somebody's interested in what you're talking about today, what should they do?
What they should do, you can give me a call directly. We'll have a very simple conversation and see if we're a good fit to have a financial roadmap meeting, which I've talked about. It's about a 45-minute to an hour-long conversation where we'll get to know each other a little bit and see if we're a good fit to work together. And if you'd like to do that, my direct line is 210-748-1937. So you can call or text that number. You could also go to our website, www.financialplanninghq.net, and send me a message that way.
Thanks for the financial focus, Jacob Warren, Financial Planning HQ.
Thank you, Todd.
We'll see you next week. Welcome back to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt. Now it's time to discover your hidden legal issue blind spots by listening to me talk about the law on the radio. And today I'm here with Tim Allums with Keller Williams Realty. You're an associate broker and realtor, and you've been doing that for 12 years.
Yes, sir.
And you're ranking in the top 10% of San Antonio agents.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. That's a big feat to
Thank you.
reach. You have a degree in economics from
UTSA.
UTSA here in San Antonio, and you have certifications like certified negotiations expert, senior real estate specialist, military relocation professional, and accredited luxury home specialist.
Yes, sir.
You're a specialty of specialists.
There you go. I got a lot of almost the entire alphabet behind my name on my business card.
There you go. So you're on 9:30 a.m. The Answer and 6:30 a.m. The Word in San Antonio. Also, you're on 1070 a.m. and 103.3 FM in Houston, as well as Facebook Live, YouTube, podcasts everywhere, and talklawradio.com. Isn't that exciting?
That is awesome. That's more than I thought.
So your family is from Texas.
Yes.
Tell us the story about how that came to be.
So my family's roots go back to pre-Civil War in East Texas, and my father was in the Air Force. So I'm technically a full-blooded Texan, but I was born on an air base in Illinois.
Okay, so it's like you're still a natural born, just like federal law says if you're in the Air Force and you're born in another country on an air base, you're still
I guess so,
US
if you want to
citizen.
get technical about it. Yeah.
Okay. And you went to Judson High School.
Judson High School, just for one semester. That was when we came back from living in Germany for 3 years. My father was in the Air Force over there. The entire family was living over there, and came back in October of 1985. So just really a little bit more than a semester, and graduated in 1986.
Okay. You have a degree in economics. Is that when you decided to be a realtor?
No, so I've always been in sales for whatever reason. God's leading into the sales industry. Took me 8 years to get my 4-year degree in economics because I had a passion for cars. I had my first Corvette before I even got my degree. So, but sales tended to be all of the jobs that I had as I was working to pay for my degree and my
okay.
car hobby. So once I graduated with a degree in economics, I found out that I was making 2.5 times the starting scale working as an analyst for a bank, doing actuarial forecasting, things of that nature. So I just stayed in sales.
Okay. Well, we're glad you did. We're going to talk a lot about real estate. Are you ready for that?
I'm ready.
A lot of headlines say the Texas housing market is either crashing or booming. How would you describe San Antonio residential real estate market today?
So I'm not familiar with any particular market in Texas booming in terms of residential, but I would say that all of Texas on the macro level is pretty much a buyer's market right now. San Antonio is definitely in a buyer's market for residential real estate. It's providing unique opportunities for people who are actually in the buying mode for, the real estate journey in their lives. Provides unique challenges for those in the resale market. So,
Well, tell us first, what does buyer's market mean?
so buyer's market, primarily the definition is that there are more sellers than there are buyers of the inventory. So, it's as opposed to a seller's market like what we experienced during COVID, where it was, just throw any property in almost any condition on the market and just stand back and wait for the offers to come in. It's a little bit of an oversimplification versus right now, especially in the resale market has been very much challenged by new construction. Used to be in the resale market, it was all mostly about location. But now, because affordability is being challenged, and builders can build to the payment that a family needs, a lot of times people will drive that extra distance to get that affordability. A great example is a house that in the resale market, and I'm basing this illustration off an actual transaction, $650,000 house in 78209, which normally would be under contract in, a matter of maybe 10 days, sitting on the market for 10 months, and not the only house that has that affliction, if you will. Perfectly good condition, very well cared for. My sellers would get a showing, follow up for feedback with the buyer's agent, and they say, "Oh, it's a wonderful house, but they went with new construction." So call the client and go, "What are you talking about? There's no new houses for 12 miles."
Right.
I know. But if you're financing on 80% loan to value on a $650,000 house, you're financing 520. When you have compare a similar price point and similar amount carried with a bank, new construction where their lender is buying down the rate 2%, you figure out what the principal and interest difference is. This is about $700 a month. That sort of a payment
Okay.
difference. Before the markets that we were in right now, that sort of delta between what a resale loan would be and what the new construction financing would be was not there.
I've read that back in 2019, the average monthly payment was around 22% of a buyer's income. Today, it's 38%.
I read that just yesterday.
And my mom's dad said don't pay more than a fourth of your income to your housing. And so he would say, don't buy that house.
Yeah, what can you do in terms of what's available out there? So definitely, as a percentage of your gross income, those numbers have been pushed, and it's made things very challenging for a lot of families out there.
And one of my friends said before driving over here to the show was that back in the olden days, a married couple could afford a house on one person's income. Now it's hard to afford the house on a two-income household. And so is it the mortgage rates? Is it all about the Federal Reserve, or are there other market forces here at work?
There's a lot of different forces at work. I don't know that I could quantify all of them, but you think about what the average square footage of a house was in 1973. It's just slightly over 1,000 square foot. What's the average square footage of a house today? Somewhere between, I don't know the exact percent,
2 and 3.
2,800 to 3,000 square feet. So what are we talking about there? So if you triple the size of what the house was in 1970, you could expect to have triple the complexity and triple the expense.
Yeah,
and
that
maintenance
makes a
and
lot of sense.
upkeep, yes. So it's not the high cost of living in some instances, it's the cost of high living, as my grandmother would say.
Yeah, people don't like to hear that.
Right.
Another one of my friends said that part of what made the residential real estate market challenging right now is so many apartment buildings are being built.
I don't know how much of a factor that is, but there have been a lot of Class A apartments going online, and it has impacted residential single-family detached rentals, such that you've got such intense competition on the Class A properties that you're getting, 2 months free, parking, premium covered parking, amenity centers, all sorts of things that are actually impacting residential rentals, the single family detached. The family that would traditionally want to have, if they needed to rent, would want that backyard for the kids to play in and for the dog to roam.
Right.
Well, now you have really massive amenities for children, dog parks, all these things that is very much impacted the residential rental for single family detached. I don't know if it's really impacted sales.
Okay, well, that's a good point. I'm sure that's what he was talking about. Is the Renewing Opportunity and the American Dream to Housing Act of 2025 the answer, the solution to helping people afford their homes?
I think it makes good political talking points in Washington. I don't see, based on a superficial reading of some commentary that I've looked at in the past 24 hours, most of what the act is encompassing is very macro scale in terms of relaxing the EPA timelines for your environmental studies that need to be done, infrastructure, that sort of thing. What the commentary that I read was that the average family of four trying to seek a house in whatever MSA that they're in, they're not going to see any economic impact. Or, if houses just went down $10,000 in this bracket, that's not going to happen. And the actual impact of the legislation may take 10 years to actually be seen at a
Okay.
macro level.
Yeah. This is Tim Allums. He's with Keller Williams. He's a super real estate broker. He's got lots of certifications. He's in the top 10%. We're talking about San Antonio residential real estate. So we got to take a break, but I did want to mention that when Donald Trump first took office, he had an executive order that almost accomplishes the same thing as this Road to the American Dream Act. And what happened was it worked. And so the hedge funds that were buying up all the houses, they did something different. Let's talk about it after the break. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt. In the beginning, God had one law: don't eat from the fruit of that tree. Then he gave Moses the 10 Commandments. And now we have municipal, state, and federal lawmakers that won't stop creating new laws, laws that might impact you without you knowing it. So listen to Talk Law Radio every Saturday morning, Sunday afternoon, and anytime on podcasts everywhere, Facebook or YouTube. You can watch YouTube while you're walking the dog, working in the garage on your Corvette, or washing the dishes. So I'm here with Tim Allums.
There you go.
Tim Allums. He's a realtor and he's in the top 10%. He has lots of certifications. He's very knowledgeable. Got your economics degree from UTSA here in San Antonio. He's born of a native Texan.
Yep, 2 native Texans. Yeah.
Great. And we're talking about residential real estate in San Antonio. Before the break, I brought up Donald Trump's executive order number 14376, stopping Wall Street from competing with Main Street home buyers. And there was restrictions on the sale of single-family homes by the federal government. And they were supposed to prevent agencies and government-sponsored enterprises from engaging in the following: providing for, approving, insuring, guaranteeing, securitizing, or facilitating the acquisition by a large institutional investor of a single-family home that could otherwise be purchased by an individual homeowner occupant. And so I bring that up because it sounds very similar to the Road Act of 2025, which is to help restore the American dream for people to buy their first home. And I had read that institutional investors like hedge funds were once buying single family homes, and they've switched now to building whole developments, and for the sole purpose of renting out the homes.
Build to rent communities.
And do you think that that's affecting the San Antonio market?
In terms of residential sales,
Yeah.
I haven't seen any evidences of that.
Okay. So the Road Act, you said in the previous segment, probably isn't going to affect one person that's suddenly going to find that, yes, home ownership is more affordable because it's tens of thousands of dollars less than it
Right.
used to be.
Right.
Well, would you support the Road Act anyway?
I don't know it at a granular level. I just
That's
know,
okay.
yeah, I just know that it's supposed to be streamlining the environmental process on a macro level in terms of, large swaths of land, infrastructure. There's supposed to be $200 million in grant incentives for certain communities that needs to be applied for, but the runway for this to actually come to fruition and take effect is in the 5 to 10 year time frame. So as far as any immediacy or relief for people that are seeking affordability initiatives now, that's not the intent of the bill, but it makes great talking points in Washington
Yeah.
for people to, strut their stuff and say that we did something for the American people.
That's right. So what do you recommend for young homeowners that want to get into their first home?
Probably do what my parents did. They took on second jobs. If they're at that financial stage where they're not able to, quite get into home ownership, just you got to work doggedly. You got to maybe apply some of the Dave Ramsey principles. The only time you see the inside of the restaurant is if you're scrubbing dishes in the kitchen, that sort of thing. That's what I did. I didn't take on second job, but in terms of, just toned down my lifestyle, and I saved a ton of money. And I was 32 before I bought my first house.
Okay, well, that gives us hope. Yeah, do what Tim did and save your money and work hard. That's the American way.
There you go.
Well, before we start talking about the sinners and the saints, I wanted to ask you more about the residential market. Can you give us an example of a typical situation, somebody that you represented and found a great outcome for them?
So, happens quite a bit. So I primarily market myself as a listing agent, but I like to work with first-time home buyers, young families, looking for opportunity. There's a lot of houses out there that have extended days on market, and we want to know is the days on market, is that indictment brought forth by the home being in poor condition? Is it poorly photographed? I helped recently a family who found a house that they didn't want to go look at because the photos were so poor, and I talked them into it. I said, if it's going to be if we go look at this house and it turns out to be a total waste of your time, I will pay for dinner for the entire family at the restaurant of your choice. I was so confident that this house would look better than the photographs because I toured it the day before. That, they got into that house, and before we were halfway through it, tears were streaming down the cheek of the wife because we found the house.
Nice.
And because the photos were so poor, didn't have the greatest listing agent in terms of, actually spending money to do a pro photo package. We're spending $700 or $800 of our own money before the sign is even in the ground for our listing clients to have a professionally marketed property. This wasn't that, and we were the only people that came to the table with an offer.
Wow.
And so we had a lot of leverage. We weren't in a multiple offer situation. Now, we were fair and highly principled, but this was the offer. There weren't any alternatives.
Right.
and it was a fair offer, but it was definitely off list.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that. So call Tim Allums if you want some awesome representation in the Texas San Antonio residential real estate market. Now it's time for the sinners and the saints. There's music going on. It's A Mighty Fortress is Our
I
God.
could barely hear it.
Yeah. Martin Luther, who nailed his 95 Thesis to the church door, said that we're all sinners and saints. And so I like to talk about a sinner and a saint. And the sinner today is someone who's been charged for conducting a $69.5 million fraud scheme, Devin Ward Elder. He was charged and he pled guilty, and he was supposed to be sentenced earlier this week, but I haven't seen the sentencing yet. The reason I bring it up is because investors, he duped investors into buying, whatever investment he was selling. And so I wanted people to get some know-how in how to avoid this situation. Do you help investors buy houses?
I do.
And so how do you know a good investor from a bad investor?
So, in terms of when you're speaking in terms of who I'm representing,
Yeah.
uh, most of my clients are brought to me by referral.
Mm-hmm.
So I work with a lot of investors on the listing side. I don't work with a lot of investors on the purchase side.
Okay.
But it's a matter of, there have been plenty of listings that I've turned down because I saw poor workmanship, or I just didn't get a good feeling about the outcome of working with a certain individual. So
Talking
just
about putting
the-
lipstick on a pig, I
that
guess.
sort of thing that happens. You ask, did you pull permits? Let's see,
Mm-hmm.
that sort of thing. And then also just the spirit of discernment. Sometimes you just get that sense that something's not going to be a good fit, and
Mm-hmm.
it's okay to turn down business if
Right.
we're not chasing the dollar, we're chasing an outcome that I have to live with
Mm-hmm.
later.
Good. Well, some things I found that people should watch out for if somebody's trying to sell you an investment. They say, I have this apartment building, or I'm going to build this development. Even some famous basketball players have gotten into some trouble with investing in somebody who says, I'm going to develop this into a resort.
Mhm.
I've heard that on the news over the years. Well, number one is demand proof. Escrow confirmations, audited capital accounts, third-party verifications. If somebody says, you're investing in the same thing I'm investing in, then you should say, show me the wire transfers or capital calls from the sponsor's personal funds. Another thing is if they offer high returns, you should know, well, that's a red flag anyway, because real estate carries some high risk, especially for large buildings, multi-tenant type apartment buildings. Their tenants have issues, there's interest rates. A friend of mine was predicting that um, the buildings downtown would all be empty and they would become apartment buildings someday. But we got to take a break. Sorry to cut it off midstream. We'll be right back. We're going to talk about legacy. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt here with Tim Allums. He's a realtor here in San Antonio, and Allums.
Allums.
Sorry
That's
about that.
okay.
I have a really hard time with names. I need to start practicing before I get on the air. The funniest thing about you, Tim, this is part of your legacy,
Okay.
is your hat.
Yes.
You didn't wear it.
You want me to go get it?
No, you got to find Tim online because he's always wearing this hat that says Tim's World.
Tim's World of Real Estate. I'm
And
riffing on Wayne's World.
yeah, that was a cool flick when I was growing up too. This is the legacy segment.
And now, it's time for the Talk Law Radio Legacy Spotlight. What's your legacy? Sponsored by Marquardt Law Firm.
I like to talk about legacy because Marquardt Law Firm is a sponsor of the show, and attorneys at Marquardt Law Firm focus on business and estate law, including last wills, living trusts, and tax-protected inheritance plans. It's all about legacy. So I like to ask my guest about their legacy, and this could be something that you inherited from those who have gone before you, or something you want to pass down to your beneficiaries. It could even be the values that you learned. And I know that you said, I don't view myself as a legacy builder, but you did tell me something about your father that is his legacy to you, and you can share it with our audience now. When I came to the radio station and you were already here, I said, you beat me. So what did you learn from your father?
So my father told me that if I was on time, I was 15 minutes late for any sort of meeting.
And you stuck with it.
Yes.
So that's something I'll remember about you.
Awesome.
Another thing that I've seen online, you like to post on Facebook and probably other places. You like to have fun with that. I see that you have a mascot.
Yes.
Can you tell us about your mascot?
That would be our 7-pound Chihuahua. His name is Nacho. His formal name is Ignacio Libre.
And tell us about him. What's his character like? What does he do with you?
So since my wife and I office at homes, he is the office pooch. He's very well traveled. He likes to travel with us when we do car trips. He has a secure seat in the center console of our car that whether we're in the Corvette or the Shelby or one of the Miatas, that boy has ridden 150 miles per hour.
So does he sit on the center console or in it?
It is a little carrier that's developed for use on the center console of a car. So it's anchored, and then he has a safety apparatus, a harness, if you will. So
Okay.
yeah, and he likes to sit up and look out the window and see where we're going. And he's a little bit of a celebra dog, is what I like to say. My wife doesn't like that term for whatever reason, but he goes to all the car shows with us, and everywhere he goes, he's very well received. And if we go somewhere and we don't bring him for whatever reason, maybe we choose to have him stay with the sitter, people will be
Ask about him.
disappointed at that. You didn't bring Nacho.
Yeah. You mentioned car shows. Tell us about the car shows that you go to and what makes that fun for you.
So what we like is we've been invested in the car community for over 30 years. I had my first Corvette in 1994. We just like the community of car people. We love doing things like the Lone Star Corvette Club, Lone Star Classic in Grapevine, Texas. We were just there in July. We'll be at Bastrop for Corvette Invasion, which will be 300 Corvettes there in one place in Bastrop. Beautiful town. The town is a big economic generator for the town of Bastrop, and they really roll out the red carpets for us. And we like to do motorsport events. We like to go to do track days. We like to do big driving events out in West Texas, like Octane Fest, which is going to be 70 to 100 of, very high potent, high horsepower cars that, travel at a brisk pace out there in the West Texas area.
That's awesome. So is it do you give awards to like the nicest car, the oldest car, or the one that's been modified the most?
There can be those sorts of awards. The car that drove the person that drove the furthest to get to an event, the person who got uh, the broke down on the road event, or award, best paint, best interior, best modifications, or just best, in class, those sorts of awards.
And so, do any of your cars, do you go for that, winning one of those kinds of awards?
We're not so much trophy hounds as we are just being a part of the community and participating in the event. Of course, if our name gets called to, go up and grab receive a trophy or something like that, we're not going to turn it down, of course.
I think your wife Becky won something once in the past couple of years. I saw you post
Yeah.
on Facebook.
So when we were in West Texas for Octane Fest in 2024, she got the local sheriff's award for best in class.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, going along with the legacy segment, I wanted to talk about the legacy of Alan Greenspan. You know, he was the Fed chair during the term of 4 different presidents. There was Bill Clinton, George H.W. Bush, George W. Bush, and I forget who the fourth one was. Do you remember?
Not off the top of my head.
Well, anyway,
19-year span.
that's a pretty big legacy. I mean, for that many presidents to keep you around. And if you read his obituary, people have lots of nice things to say. They say during his era, lots of good things happened.
Mhm.
When the water rises, all the ships go with it, as they say.
Mhm.
But after he left, that's sort of when the market went down. And so
Yeah.
some people wonder, was it his fault for keeping rates low?
I don't know if it was necessarily because of him, but I think that there's some spillover from the Community Reinvestment Act, which was bipartisan act in the 90s, whereby there's immense pressure on banking institutions to lend in the residential market. And the residential non-bank mortgage market was quite huge at the time and very much unregulated. And so the subprime blowout of 2008, when you could walk in and basically any mortgage company and just do stated income loans, which they called liar's loans.
Mm-hmm.
You had people, if you've watched, did you ever watch The Big Short? That
Yeah.
movie? Okay, that
Uh-huh.
was a very true documentary. And then there was another movie that came out about the same time as The Big Short. I forget the name of the movie. I have it on DVD, and occasionally I'll watch these. Very true depiction of people getting 2 and 3 mortgage loans, doing adjustable rate mortgages, letting their friends live in houses,
Mm-hmm.
that sort of thing. And when the rates went up, the defaults went crazy, and that's when we had to bail out Merrill Lynch. Who was it? Wachovia went under, Bear Stearns, all of these people that were wrapping up toxic debt into mortgage bonds and
Right.
selling them into the secondary market. There was such an appetite for these assets that the underforming instruments inside of them were just toxic. And when it just all blew up, and I wouldn't say that was necessarily anything that Alan Greenspan caused, but he was definitely the head of the Federal Reserve. That's not a cause and effect, I don't think.
Yeah, right. I was telling my wife the other day, just because 2 things happen at the same time doesn't mean that they're related.
Correct.
You got to be careful when you say things like that to your wife, though.
Yes.
Well, we have a couple of minutes left, and I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk to people. What do they need to know, when they're trying to get ready to sell their house? You like to work with sellers. What should they know?
So, when somebody is referred to us to represent them on a residential sale, what we like to do is set up an appointment at the property. I like to do what we call a 360 tour of the property. I'll sit down and ask the family what their goals are, Are they upgrading? Are they downsizing? Is it a job move? Is it a divorce? What is causing them to no longer see that house as being meeting their needs at that time?
Love it or list it.
We'll do a love it or list it. So we'll do a 360 tour of the property. We're going to look for items that would be would potentially cause cognitive dissonance for a buyer. These material issues that we're going to address, or these issues that we're not going to address but disclose and then price accordingly. So in this market, we're selling a lot of houses that just need to be spruced up for the market. You really just, your competition is against new construction, whether you think you are or not. You know, these
You
established.
want to make it look nice
Yeah, you want to make it look nice. as
so
best
that
you
they don't
can.
have to make repairs when they come in.
Yeah, and if you have a whole bunch of little bitty $10 and $20 repair items that you've lived with forever because you know it's not an indicator of something more serious, a buyer that's never been in your property before, they see enough of these that you trip that magic wire and they're like, how many more do we have to look at today? They're done.
Cognitive dissonance.
Dissonance, yes.
Okay, well, this is Tim Allums with Keller Williams Realty, and he's been talking to us about San Antonio real estate. If somebody's interested in talking to you, what should they do?
They can call me or text me, 210-380-7475.
Okay, tell them one more time. The number.
210-380-7475.
Thank you.
Thank you, Todd.
We'll talk to you later.
Most families don't realize they have hidden legal blind spots until it's too late. Wills, trusts, Medicaid planning, even protecting a business. These are the kinds of issues attorney Todd Marquardt helps uncover before they become problems. Todd is the host of Talk Law Radio, where each week he guides listeners through the legal challenges families, veterans, and business owners face, while showing them the practical steps to protect what matters most. Catch Talk Law Radio, Saturdays at 11 a.m. on 9:30 a.m. The Answer, 6:30 a.m. The Word, and now in Houston on AM 1070 and 103.3 FM The Answer, or anytime on YouTube. Planning isn't just about documents. It's about peace of mind, security for loved ones, and building a legacy that lasts. Don't wait for a crisis. Do it before you die.